Yep, if anybody's staying for Ryan's presentation, could you please be seated? Jeff and Ruth are going to be here. He's a former pastor, retired pastor. All right, thanks everyone. Listen, I'm going to reintroduce Ryan briefly. So as you can see from the screen, Ryan's the Regional Gift Planner for the ELCA Foundation. He is responsible for the states of West Virginia, Western Pennsylvania, and most recently, Western New York. He lives in Newcastle, Pennsylvania with his family, which I believe is near Pittsburgh. Oh, Youngstown, Ohio. It's not near Pittsburgh? Okay, it's Pennsylvania, though. Great state. All right, I'll turn it over to Ryan.
Good morning, everyone. Hopefully hopefully you can hear me good. I'm going to basically do a lot of things off of the slides that I have. I'm a visual kind of person, and so hopefully the visual stuff will help you as well. So I'll just kind of point over at Roger whenever we advance. The first thing that I just want to start off with is just a quick little Bible story. Do you all know the Bible story of the rich farmer? You know, so this rich farmer, he had a really, really, really good harvest season. And in that harvest season, he gathered up all his stuff and he said, man, what a great year that I had. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go on vacation and I'm going to enjoy myself. And so this farmer, you can go ahead and advance a couple. He puts all of his stuff into his barn, all of his harvest into his barn, and he just kind of pats himself on the back and says, wow, I did a great job. I'm going to go on vacation. And so when he went on vacation, after he stored everything up, God showed up. And when God showed up, he said, hey, what have you done with the things that you prepared for yourself? Did you not know that this is the day that I'm going to call you and your life will be over? And the farmer was not ready for that. And go ahead and advance a couple. In that, there were some things that was missing as a part of that story. What was not mentioned in that story? There was no mention of... What's that? I'm sorry? There was mention of a barn, but there was no mention, we talked about the farmer, but we never talked about the farmer's family. There was no mention of the farmer's family. And then also, there was no mention of the community as a whole. When you have a large harvest, hopefully you have enough that you're going to feed your family. Hopefully you're going to have enough that you can share with the community. And so you could make the argument that he was not a good steward of his resources, and God was kind of calling him out on it. And so when we think about stewardship, we talk about being careful, being responsible with the things that are entrusted into our care. And when we think about our legacy, we tie that together with stewardship in a little bit of a different way. Because when we talk about giving gifts to the church, a lot of times we think about the gifts that we give now. But there is a way to be a good steward of your legacy and the things that you accumulate over your lifetime. And so we're going to look into that and how stewardship ties into your ultimate legacy. So when we think about where we want things to go, because just a forewarning, when your time on earth is over, all of your stuff, you're not bringing it with you, and it's going to have to go somewhere. It's going to have to be distributed somewhere. And if you don't make the decision where it's going to go, who makes the decision? The state, the government's going to get involved, and they're going to make decisions on your behalf. Now, when we think about the two places where we want things to go, our family and loved ones, and our community or the charities that we love and support are the two places we want things to go. Is that about it? I mean, are there other places that you would want things to go to? That pretty much sums it up. Go ahead, Mark. And so when we think about our estate and how it's going to all work out, and we think about our wills and how that's all going to work out, we oftentimes put some expectations on. And oftentimes, if you've ever owned a home or you've ever done anything where you've like, I'm getting to do this myself, and you try to do it, oftentimes the reality doesn't meet the expectation. So I just want to illustrate that for a second here. And I like to use Pinterest. It's a website that you can go onto that kind of shows you really cool crafts and really neat recipes and party ideas that you can check out. And so I like to kind of explain it like this. You know, you go onto Pinterest, you see, oh, look, there's this really cool thing that I can do myself. Oh, I can put, some crayons on a board and melt them and make this really cool piece of art. And then you go and you try and do it yourself, and all of a sudden, the reality is that it doesn't really turn out. Another one is, my wife loves to make these things. They're where you put cake mix into a mug and then you put it in the microwave. And I can do that. And then I go and try, and, reality happens. And then, let's get other people involved, right? That'll always work out, and so you try to do the exact same thing that you see someone else do, and there we go. It's just like, it just doesn't work out. So why am I illustrating this? The main reason is that when we think about how our estate is going to be distributed when we pass away, oftentimes our expectation is, as long as I have my will, then my will dictate what will be distributed to my family, and if I incorporate some charitable giving into my will, the charities and the ministries that I want to support will also receive something. Now, just looking at the will, when things go through the will, it's something called probate. And you have an executor, and they follow. It's an actual court case that gets opened up about with your will to help distribute the assets that go into your estate. Now, those assets it's gonna take some time. There's gonna be fees that have to be paid before the ultimate beneficiaries receive things. So if there's any debts that need to be paid, that gets paid. Then it takes about at least 9 months. And how many of you have been the executor of someone else's will, and it's been a little more difficult than just 9 months and going easy? So ultimately, whatever's left, the residuum would go to your family and loved ones and to the charities. But it has to go through a large process in order to do that. And so the other thing that is interesting is that if you only concentrate on the will and you only think about your will when you're doing your estate planning, you are missing probably a large chunk of assets that you're not considering when you're putting together that plan. And I'm going to kind of get into what that means in the next slide here. So, like I said, probate, the will, but then there are a lot of assets that you may have that that are distributed directly through beneficiary designations. And so when you're making your plan, you want to make sure to account for both sides of things. So what things go through probate, what things go direct? In general, your real property is what goes through the will. All of your financial assets, your retirement accounts, your life insurance that you may have, even your bank accounts, and then any like stocks, bonds, mutual funds that you might have, all of those things do have to or can be distributed through beneficiary designation, completely bypassing your will. And so the reason that I bring this up is that if you picture this, like you say, I want to leave 10% to my church, and I'm going to put 10% of, to my church in my will. But then your house is the only thing of value that actually ends up flowing through your will. Are you giving 10% of your total estate then? You're giving a lot less than you think. And so I want to make sure that your expectation and reality are matching up here. and that you have that in your planning. And so what my job is and what my ministry is to help you to look at your entire holistic estate and to develop a gift plan. And what that entails is a few things. So why is it important to have a gift plan? Go ahead and go to the next slide, Mark. So when you have a gift plan, you are the one making the decision on how you want to make those gifts. There are many different ways that you can give a gift to your loved ones and give a gift to charity. You can, most of the time, set up just direct requests, where when you pass away, you pick a certain asset and have that asset be directed to the ministries or the charities of your choice. But there are also other ways that you can make gifts. You can set up trusts, a charitable trust that would provide an income stream to your family for a period of time, and then the remainder would go to charity, the charities of your choice. You can set up gift annuities that would provide you income for now, for the rest of your life, and then the residual would end up going to the charity of your choice. You can also set up endowment funds of your own, named endowments, where you could provide a gift, and then that gift would live in perpetuity for all time and be able to support the charities and ministries that you love. So there's many different ways that you can give. The next thing is that we want to make sure that you're using the best assets. There are certain assets that are better than others to give to charity, and there are certain assets that are better than others to give to family. For example, life insurance. If you have life insurance, is it better to give that to your family, or is it better to give that to charity? Anyone? Why would you give it to your family over charity, over another asset? Yeah, there's no tax involved. I don't know if New York State has inheritance tax. You do? What is your inheritance tax? What is your inheritance tax? I believe it's 6%. 6%, okay. With life insurance, you have income tax that the beneficiaries would end up having to pay. With life insurance, you don't have to deal with that. If you give a retirement asset, you have to deal with income tax, and then also there's the inheritance tax. I know that in Pennsylvania, it's 4.5%. For lineal descendants. And so, and then it goes up to like 15% if you give it to your cousins. So, based upon where you're giving things, there are certain assets that are better to give certain places. And so when you look at it, you want to look at it holistically to find out which asset is the best place to go. And then ultimately, which beneficiaries would receive those assets. And so that's how that gift plan works out, is that when you look at it in that holistic way, you're able to make those decisions in the best way, and you can look at it piece by piece. Because unfortunately, your will just isn't going to cover everything. So you got to look at each individual account that you have and figure out how you want to strategically make your gifts and distribute your assets. So your plan is going to help you make the best decisions on the ways to give, who to give it to, and which assets you use. All right, Mark. So what is a gift plan? How do I make one? So when we meet, it's a free meeting. It's confidential. It's something that is a ministry and a service for you as a member of this congregation, as a member of an ELCA congregation. So we look to meet, and we talk about three things. The first thing is we're going to talk about your family and loved ones. And when you pass away, who do you want to make sure will receive an inheritance? Second thing is we're going to have a little faith talk. And this is something that when you sit down with your estate attorney, they may ask you, what do you want to leave to charity? And if you just say, I don't know, I'm not sure, they're not, like, that's all the more that conversation is going to typically go. But with the discussion that we will have, that discussion will go in depth into your faith journey. What is the history of your involvement in your congregation? Are there other ministries that you've been involved in over the years? And we just help to identify and uncover the ministries and the charities that mean the most to you. And this could be your church, but it also could be, the local humane society or the historical society. It doesn't have to always be 100% ELCA stuff. So just know that we're here to look at the entirety of your charitable intent. And when I sit down with people average about 3 to 4 charitable beneficiaries per plan that we put together. So, the leaving just 10% to your church doesn't really always, there are some people that still are in that choose that direction. But a lot of people, they find out that they can make a larger impact with a larger portion of their estate, and they can spread that across multiple charitable beneficiaries. And so we look at all of that, and I'm not going to just say, well, what are you here to do for your church? And that's it. It's going to be more involved than that, unless that is where you are. And then the last thing that we do of the 3 things that we talk about is we actually look at all the different assets you have and determine how are they going to be distributed and which assets would potentially be the right ones to make into charitable gifts, which portions of those assets would go to family and loved ones. And then from there, what I do is I will actually create a gift plan. It's an illustration that's going to show you how your assets will be distributed and give recommendations to you on some things that you can do that would put your plan into action. And so I'm just going to build really quickly what an illustration would look like. So the first thing is we have a total estate. I just randomly picked some numbers just to kind of give that. So $900,000. Wow, that's almost $1 million. How are we doing that? I'm sorry, this is small. I'll try and read it to you. But if you think about it, a lot of your assets are your home. Then you might have some life insurance. You might have some investments that you set up on your own. A lot of you, unless you're a farmer, the main part of your assets are your retirement accounts, your IRAs, 401ks that you may have. And then you also have some stuff that's in checking and savings and stuff like that. So when you add up all of those assets together, you have a pretty significant amount that is going to be distributed when you pass. And so we have a total of $900,000. And then we ask ourselves the question, if you or married couples, if you both pass away tomorrow, how would you want that to be distributed? And in this case, this couple in this sample here, they wanted to do 80% of their total estate to go to family, and then 20% go to charity. Well, what does that actually mean? I mean, ask yourself the question right now. If I was to leave 20% of my total estate, do you know how much that would actually be and what kind of impact that you would make? In this case, when we add up everything, we see that roughly $180,000 would go to charity. I mean, that's awesome. Like, that's a really, really amazing gift. And probably a gift that not many of us can make in our lifetime. But through our legacy, we can still provide $720,000 to our children and also provide almost $200,000 to charity. So when we look at that, then we kind of start to break it down a little bit more. And we find out, what stuff's going to go through probate, what stuff is going to go direct. And then from there, we add to that, and we look at, go ahead and add more there, Mark. And then we look at, I have 3 children. We divide it up equally, $240,000 to each child. And then we determine what charities that you want to support from there. And we work on it to figure out what asset now goes into that. And so we're going to add the charitable element here. And it looks like if we just break out a portion of the retirement account and change the beneficiaries to that, we can make it to where a portion goes to family and then a portion ends up making your charitable element. And so what it is, I'm hoping that you'll want to introduce a charitable element into your estate plan, whatever that may be. Some of you may want to just change your will, but there might be some really neat, creative ways that we can introduce a charitable element into your estate plan, and that could be through retirement accounts, it could be through creating a trust, it could be through doing many different things, but this is just one example of a way that you can do that. And so, once we give you that illustration, that doesn't mean anything has actually happened. So what we actually do is help you to make step-by-step plans so that you know what you need to do. You know that you need to go and talk to your lawyer about this. You know that you need to go and talk to your financial advisor about this. And hopefully, ultimately, once we determine what steps to take and you take those steps, we're going to help you to gain the assurance that if something were to happen to you tomorrow or today, you know how your assets will be distributed. You know that the ministries that you love are going to be taken care of. You know that the family and loved ones that you have are going to be taken care of through the estate and legacy plan that you have put together. So lastly, just before I conclude with everything, I just wanted to briefly talk about some of the objections that I typically hear whenever I come to churches and stuff, and it's great because I've heard all of these and they're great. So I'm not a mind reader or anything. If you're thinking about them right now, it's not that I read minds, it's just that these are the common things. So the first thing that someone will come up to me and say, well, Ryan, I have a will. I don't need to meet with you. And again, I just want to reemphasize, the will is only part of your plan. We want to make sure that we're looking at it holistically. You want to look at your will, but you also want to look at those assets that are not going to go through your will and make sure that those beneficiaries are right. Second thing is I don't know what's going to happen to me tomorrow. I don't know what's going to happen to me in 5 years. Things are going to change. And so I don't really want to make a decision right now about that. And I just want to talk about that farmer again. You don't know when things are going to happen. And so you want to make at least a temporary plan, put it in place knowing that you can make changes along the way. Well, Ryan, I don't have $1 million that I can give, and I just really don't have much. Well, the thing is that everything that you have, like I said earlier, is going to go somewhere. And if you make the decisions of where those are going to go, then it makes it a little bit easier for others to not have to make those decisions for you. Well, I haven't decided what charities I love. I don't really know exactly what I want to do. Well, that's where I am going to be with you on that journey to make those decisions and help guide and just ask. I don't twist any arms. I don't make anyone do anything they don't want to do. I just basically ask questions and listen and then just help provide opportunities so that you can make an informed decision. And ultimately know that it's still your money. It's still what you have. And so ultimately, if we just change a beneficiary, that account still remains in your name. That account still is yours. You can make changes at any point. Ryan, I want to meet with you, but I really want to talk to my attorney first. And, if you do, that's fine. But just know that I am one part. I have like one lane when it comes to your legacy planning. You want to have a team assembled of people that are going to help you with your estate plan. You want to have your financial advisor. They're going to make sure that that you can retire and you can have enough money to live on for the rest of your life. You also want to make sure that you have your estate attorney and make sure that the will is put together. But the thing that I offer is a holistic view of everything and just help you to make decisions around your faith life and how that is going to impact your legacy and how you put your legacy together. So with that all in mind, you can go ahead to the next slide there. We're going to, in conclusion, explore your passions, We're going to see what you really love, who you love. We're going to create that plan, help you put that plan into place and into effect, and give you that assurance that if you pass away tomorrow, you know what would happen. So, in general, what would your boxes say? What would your illustration look like? When we meet, then we would be able to determine what that is and put that together. And, I just love when I do and finally put these things together and people put it into place. It's so great to hear, wow, I finally know what I'm doing. I finally can see the impact that I'm going to have. And I'm so happy that I did it. And ultimately, we want to make sure that the expectation that you have meets the reality that you, the charities that you love, and your family will experience. So that's what I have as far as my presentation. I have contact information. I have sheets here that I can give you. I also have sheets that you can fill out if you'd like to actually have me contact you. I also have my calendar with me that if you want to actually schedule a time to meet, and we can meet in person where I can come to your home, or we can do it over Zoom if you're more comfortable that way as well. So, completely up to you. Again, this is a confidential, free ministry of the church. There is no charge for this. This is something that is meant to be a blessing, a service to you as a member of the church. And as long as you have some charitable intent, and that charitable intent includes any ELCA ministry, at least one of them, then I'm more than happy to have that discussion with you and help put things together and help you to see what your legacy plan would look like. Are there any questions from any of the stuff that I shared? Yes.
So things change from your slide. I'm just looking at my will. And for Bethlehem, the terminology in here says to be used as the church council or other governing body shall deem appropriate. And then just recently, as you know, we've approved and in our bylaws now have established an endowment here. So I might want to think about not 100% of my gift coming to the church to go to the council to make that decision. I might want a portion of that now to go into this endowment. Could you speak to that a little bit about what people might need to do?
I mean, the first thing that comes to mind when you said, my will says, the first thing is do you know right away exactly how much that gift is going to be? What kind of impact that's going to be? Do you know what assets are going through the will? And if there is maybe another way that you could use like retirement accounts or other assets to fund that. Because what happens is if you have to update your will, you can do like addendums and stuff like that to change the wording of things, but oftentimes the lawyer's going to want you to. I'm sorry if there's any lawyers in the house. I'm not dogging lawyers in any way, but a lot of times your estate attorney is going to say, well, we need to draft a new will, and it's going to cost some money to do that. And so when you use beneficiary designations to make that, the changes are so much easier. And the other thing too is like with the ELCA Foundation, like let's say that you have 5 different charities that you want to support. I mean, you're going to have to figure out like what percentage to give each one of them based upon this asset and using that asset. But one of the things the ELCA Foundation does is we have distribution agreements, where we just put together an agreement, and any assets that come to the ELCA Foundation, they would then distribute based upon that agreement. And it's so much easier to change a beneficiary or a distribution agreement than to have to go and change your will. And so that's why I almost encourage, like with charitable stuff, because things change, to try and look and see if there's a way to make your gift outside of the will. And if you want to do it, and if you're more comfortable doing it through the will, by all means do it that way. And we'll work with you. I'll work with you to find out the best way to do that. But unfortunately, it's just like when you have the will and you want to make a change or an update to something, oftentimes they might want you to go the full route and put it all together. And it also depends on if you can find the same lawyer and the same law firm that did it originally and all that kind of stuff as well. Does that kind of go into the realm of where you were looking? Yeah, I mean, what it is when you talk to me, we find out what you could say for the estate attorney, what you would say to the financial advisor, so that you just, you go equipped. And hopefully you can save time, save money that way. Yes, Roger.
So I want to designate a percent of my 401k or IRA to the BLC Investment and Ministry Fund. I don't want to go to an attorney. I want to go to my plan and do it. What's the language that I need to use to make that happen?
When you're working with 401ks, IRAs, typically you fill out a beneficiary designation form, and you would just fill out a new one. And you would name the organization, and then you would add a little thing that says directed to or restricted for. So I mean, it would be restricted to or restricted for would be the way to word it. But you would always, never name the program and not name the charity. Like you want to name the charity because ultimately the gift is still to the church. It's not to the program or the fund. And then you direct it that way. Yes.
What happens if the designated charity is no longer in existence? A church closes, camp goes under?
It just depends on what the fine print says on how you make the gift. A lot of times it'll just be redistributed based upon the other beneficiaries that are left. You could also leave directions to say if this church or if this ministry no longer ceases to exist, then the remainder of that was designated to them should go here. And you can name secondary or contingent beneficiaries. So it either will be divided up among the remaining, or you can have named contingents in the plan. But with the distribution agreements, like I said, we would spell that out and actually state that. It's a little difficult to do on a beneficiary designation form sometimes. And so, that's an advantage of that distribution agreement. Yes, sir.
This could be an unfair question because it's tax related. So one of the reasons that 401ks and IRAs are outside of the wills is because the federal government is wants to make sure that income, which has been sheltered from taxes, gets taxed. If you use a distribution agreement to send it to a charity, does that get taxed?
No, it would still, you would name the beneficiary to be the ELCA Foundation, and so it's still going to a charity. But, it's an interesting thing that you bring up about the sheltering of the money. One of the things that's a little interesting is that now, whenever you inherit, if I was to inherit my parents' IRA 401k, I have two choices. I either have to take it as a lump sum, and then I'm up in whatever bracket category of tax for that year because all of a sudden I have an extra $400,000 or something that is now my income, or I can spread it out over 10 years. It used to be that you could inherit an IRA or a 401k and you could spread it out a lot longer, but now it's 10 years is all that you get. So you divide it up into 10 equal portions in a way. That's another benefit of a charitable trust could be is that you can actually make the charitable trust go 20 years. And so you can actually kind of expand it out so the impact on the income that your family would receive would be a little bit less. And so the taxable stuff would be a little bit less of an impact. So there's, I guess like I'm bringing that up only as like a highlight of there's many different options that are out there. And hopefully, you know, with a discussion that we would have, we would explore what those options are. Any other questions? All right, well, thank you so much. I appreciate you sticking around to have this discussion. Again, I do have my contact information. I have on the back of this what the illustration would look like. So this is information that you can have as well. But then also I have sign-up stuff that you can have as well if you would like to actually have me contact you. Or again, I have my calendar if you'd like to actually schedule something in person or virtually. And lastly, you know, the Investment in Ministries Fund is using the ELCA Foundation as the place for investing. And this is just general information about that in case you're curious about what your church is doing as far as that investment and how it's invested, and any questions that you might have about that, I can also answer as well. Well, that's all I got. So thank you so much. I appreciate it.